Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tamassaka bihadihi ila yawm ad-din amma ba'd. I know that it's a well-known custom and traditional practice of most speakers that before they start their lecture or class or session or whatever you want to call it, they give a little story or maybe a little joke. They say breaking the ice. Is this not the case? This happened, that happened, so on and so forth. Get the people to laugh, maybe to get the people interested, break some of the tension and nervousness in the air, etc. This is what most speakers do, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim. So I really don't like doing that too much, but I feel this story has to be mentioned. I feel that this story is a benefit for us all, starting with myself firstly, and all of us in this room, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, and any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation that this or these sound bites will reach. Before the session, I was frantically looking for my iPad Air. It's old, but alhamdulillah. I said, where's the iPad? Jamil, do you have it? He said, no. Nafis, so I called him. Do you have the iPad? Where's the iPad, Akhi? I don't have it. I left it with you, subhanallah. Habib, where's the iPad? Atif Sheikh, where's the iPad? Ahmed, where's the iPad? Maybe you left it in the lunchroom. Maybe you left it in the bookstore, Dar es Salaam. Maybe Mas'ud has it, my son. Maybe. Alameen, where's the iPad, Alameen? Look under your seat. It's a reality. So I try to keep my cool. Obviously, I have some things that I want to read from this to share with you. And this is my beloved possession. Alhamdulillah, we have a relationship, we do. I just don't use my iPad, I live on it, and I love it. And there's no exaggeration in that. So I started to get just a little nervous. Okay, where's my iPad? Did somebody steal it? Nobody could have stolen it. And if he says, no, I don't think that. He says, we don't want to think bad of any Muslim. No one would take the iPad. So phone call after phone call, I only got up 3, 4, 5, 6 times, walking back and forth. Maybe here, maybe there. Habib went up to the room. Where is the iPad? So as time went on, and the security and administration, and J. Dow says, Mufti, you're on, iPad or not. You have to start your talk. Right or wrong? Am I not making this up? He said, Mufti, can you do it without the iPad? I said, Inshallah, Bismillah. So I still was worried and bothered. So I kept looking around. Where's the iPad? Atif Sheikh, he said, Khayran, Inshallah. And I said, let's leave it up to Allah. If it's decreed to come back, it's going to come back. And if it's stolen or misplaced, it's the will of God. That's what I said. It's the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qadrullah. The moment, without any exaggeration, and Allah is our witness, no exaggeration, I'm not trying to make you laugh. The moment Atif Sheikh said, Khair inshallah, and the moment I said, let's leave it up to Allah, leave it in the hands of Allah, we walked into the auditorium, it was smack dead in front of us on a water fountain. Literally. So what's the moral of the story, the lesson that we benefit, is that the slave is poor and weak. Your physical strength, your intelligence, your cunning, what you have, what you don't have, in reality means nothing. Everything is up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it wasn't for Allah making things easy and facilitating them, they wouldn't be easy and they wouldn't be facilitated. As it states in a narration, one narration states that the Prophet ﷺ made this statement. Another narration says that it's the version or the statement of Aisha, radiyallahu anha, in which it says, Salallaha kulla shay'in hatta shisa an-na'il. It says, ask Allah for everything, even for your shoestrings. فَلَوْلَا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَسَرَهَا لَمَا تَيَسَّرَتْ أَوْ كَمَا قِيلَ. If Allah didn't facilitate your shoestring, you wouldn't have a shoestring. So there's nothing too big, too small, major or minute, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives it to you, who facilitates it, and who allows you to enjoy in this worldly life. So I thought it was something that is interesting. We looked, we searched, we called, we didn't find it. We left it up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after the tawakkul. After we tried to find it. And then we said, khalas, this is in Allah's hands. Then it was brought to us. And the brother says, did you find the iPad? I said, no, I didn't find it. Allah brought it to us. So I just feel like it's something that we need a reminder of, especially in this conference. The beneficial knowledge that's being disseminated bi'idhnillah from this podium is only through, by, for, and because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. Khair, inshallah. Let's get started. Enough small talk. Let's start off with taking some questions, or not questions, but some participation from the crowd with regards to the 40 hadith of An-Nawawi. Before we mention what we have a few items, a few specimens. We want to, bi'idhnillah, see what you guys know about An-Nawawi and what you know about 40 hadith of Nawawi. So before I call on some brothers, maybe some sisters, do we have a volunteer from the crowd who can give me a piece of information with regards to Imam An-Nawawi and the book called the 40 hadith? Do we have a volunteer from brothers or sisters? Do you have any volunteers, Nuruddin? Anybody else? Anybody want to participate? Bismillah. Go ahead, sister. She says that I think that the 40 hadith of Nawawi actually contains or includes 42 hadith. Tayyib, khair, ahsanti. Very good. Anyone else? This is a quick exercise. Quick. Abu Sa'id. He was born 631. He gives us a piece of information about the background and the history and the era of Imam An-Nawawi. Tayyib, ahsant. Anyone else? Before we move on, we'll always raise the right hand and never the left hand. Always the right hand. Bismillah. Imam An-Nawawi died when? He said when he was 20 years old. He tells us that Imam An-Nawawi died at a very young age. That is a crucial piece of information with regards to his status and his book. Tayyib, ahsant. Anyone else before we move on? Tafadhal ya akhi. His book is a book of hadith that covers many aspects of life and of the deen. Khair inshallah. Tafadhal Noor, nawarakallah. That he sacrificed his life so much for the deen and for knowledge, he never got married. Tayyib, khair, ahsantum. Anyone else before we move on? Any other piece of information we have on this book or on the author? Bismillah. His collection of hadith is summarized, it's brief. It does not include the asanid, the chains of narrations of hadith. Ahsanti, very good. Anyone else before we move on? His kunya was Abu Zakaria. Ahsantum, in the back, the red shirt. That Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he had many other books. And this book was one of the books that became so famous and so popular. Type, ahsant. Anyone else before we move on? Any other facts? The topic, it says, a critical analysis. You know what this word means? Those are two heavy words in the English language. One is critical, and second is analysis. That's not a simple basic talk. That's not a simple iman boosting lecture or faith. No. Critical analysis. So that means, as we would say in common urban terms, we're going to get to the nitty gritty. We're going to roll up our sleeves and dissect the book piece by piece. A critical analysis. So before we do that, I want to know how much you guys know about Nawawi and know about his book. Anyone else want the reward from Allah to participate in spreading beneficial knowledge of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? Tafadhal ya akhi. There are many explanations of the book, such as what? Give me one. Compendium of knowledge. By who? One person. The man who raises his right hand or the sister who raises her right hand, that's who I'm speaking with. By who? Ibn Rajab. Tayyib. Very good. Ahsant. Anyone else? Habib. May Allah make you Habib to him. Ameen. There is a translation to the book. Tayyib. How many languages is the book translated in? We said critical what? Analysis. Critical analysis. Naam, Ali Haidara. Critical what? Analysis. Then we have to break down everything in the time that we have. Fadal, Muhammad. Sheikh Muhammad. He died in Nawwa, the area in which he died. What country is this place, Nawwa, located? In Syria. Type. So he was from, or at least we say he died in Syria. It's a very important piece of his life. Khair inshallah. Anyone else before we move on? Anybody else? Tafadhal ya akhi. Narrated by who? Type. Who collected it? Just Bukhari and others. Bukhari Muslim and others. The first hadith is these are only based or judged off of, or these are only judged or based off intentions. Ahsantum. Tayyib, anybody else before we move on with what we have? I want to hear from you, brothers. I want to benefit from you, bi'idhnillah. تفضل يا أخي. The second hadith deals with all of the dynamics of the religion. The hadith of who? Who narrated the hadith? Umar radiallahu anhu. And who collected this hadith? Who collected the hadith? Anybody who knows where can we find this hadith? The hadith of Jibreel. Tafadhal ya akhi. Bismillah. Umar ibn Khattab. Who collected it? What book of hadith can we find it in? In other words, brothers and sisters, before we get started in this critical analysis, we say that Nawawi's book is a summarized book. It's a book that has been chosen, the hadith are chosen and selected from bigger mother books. A Nawawi's book is not a foundation. It's a book that comes from the mother books of hadith. So when you're doing a book report or lecture or khutbah or a Wikipedia article, you can't say collected by Nawawi in 40 hadith. No, that's a scientific mistake. You have to mention who originally collected the hadith with its chain of narration. With its what? Chain of narration. So where's the hadith of Jibreel collected? Where can we find this hadith? Taddam. Bukhari and Muslim. By Umar. Umar's hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. Anybody else? Taddam. It says Rawahu Muslim, collected by Imam Muslim. As a benefit, the hadith of Jibreel has been narrated by more than one companion, not just Umar ibn Khattab. Rather, the hadith of Jibreel has also been reported by Abu Hurairah, which is found in Sahih al-Bukhari. But the version that Imam Nawawi chose to select and mention was that of Imam Muslim, min afradi Muslim. Tayyib, ahsantum. Anybody else before we get started? Anybody else before we get started? Tafadhal ya akhi. Tayyib. Now we're going into the next level. Now we're beginning, bi'idhnillah, our critical analysis. That a Nawawi's book, as I just mentioned, is a summary or a supplement of other books. He says that Nawawi's book was originally 21 hadiths by another scholar, Amr ibn Salah or Salih. Al-Muhim, what's important is that An-Nawawi, he benefited from the works of the ulama who came before him. Very good piece of information. Ahsant. Anybody else? No time for notes. No time for notes. Put the pens down. Put the pens down. We said this in the class. There's no time to take notes. Pay attention. Get the recording and write down the notes. Bidnillah. Anybody else? Anybody else? Any more participants? What did Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala say? How many Muslims attribute themselves to Imam Shafi'i today? I'm Shafi'i. I studied Shafi'i madhab, Shafi'i, the books of the Shafi'i madhab. What did Imam Shafi'i say? And how much respect and honor did he have for the people of hadith? Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, he was given the title by the people of Mecca, Nasir al-Sunnah. They called him the champion and the supporter of the Sunnah, because he was from the earliest fuqaha who had fame and prestige, who gave the people of hadith their due status. And Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he also said, anyone that you meet from the people of the hadith, he says, إِلَّا فِي وَجْهِهِ نُورًا وَنُطْرًا. He says that he'll have light in his or her face. There isn't a student of hadith, there isn't a hadith disciple, except that there's going to be a nur in their faces. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, as Zayd ibn Arqam and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and over 25 companions narrated, that the Prophet ﷺ said in the farewell pilgrimage, he said, نَضْرَ اللَّهُ رَجُلًا سَمِعَ مَقَالَتِي فَوَعَاهَا ثُمَّ أَدَّاهَا كَمَا سَمِعَهَا إِلَى آخِرِ الْحَدِيثِ. He said, may Allah brighten, may Allah illuminate the face of a man who hears my statement, memorizes it perfectly, and passes it on as he heard it from my mouth. He prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala according to one interpretation of the hadith, and the second interpretation of the hadith is that he informed you that Allah will put brightness in the face of a student of hadith. So Shafi'i rahimahullah, when the fiqh issues came to him, and there was a hadith regarding it being halal or haram, he would say, وَفِيهِ حَدِيثٌ لَا يُثْبِتُهُ أَهْلُ الْحَدِيثِ. He says, in this issue, it's halal, it's haram, can a man marry his daughter from fornication, etc. A fiqh issue in which there's difference of opinion on. He said, there's a hadith regarding that issue that the scholars of hadith don't say is authentic. In other words, Imam Shafi'i, he was a muhaddith. He was a scholar of hadith, but he had respect for the specialists. So this is the vibe that we want to produce. Bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. This contagious fever of respecting and loving the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam. I'm not here to give you a lecture. I'm not here to talk on this podium, nice. No, I'm here to have an interactive class. Bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. Khair inshallah. Anybody else before we get started? Anybody else? Abu Sa'id, Fadl? His main study or his main field of study was hadith. Type. Anybody else? Anybody else want to participate? More sisters. There were many scholars of hadith that were women. Rather, the Prophet ﷺ's wife, our mother Aisha radiallahu anha, she was a master of hadith, in which many of the tabi'in who were men would go and travel far distances just to ask her from behind the curtain or without the curtain. Al-Muhim, they would ask her for the narrations. Anybody else before we get started? Some of them gave him the nickname Muhyiddin, which means the giver of life to the deen, the reviver of the deen. What's your name, sister? MashaAllah, Allah bless you. Anybody else? Anybody else want to participate? Khair inshallah, let's get started. Before we move on, or before we go and read some things, I have a few books that I want you guys to make sure that you have in your libraries. Things which are staple, basic books of Islam, of the Sunnah, and specifically of the 40 Hadith of An-Nawawi. The first one is called the Compendium of Knowledge and Wisdom of Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, translated Abdul Samad Clark. The publisher is Turath Publishing. This book, alhamdulillah, a good friend of mine, brother in Islam, he brought it to me today. May Allah reward him well. From a distance, from many miles. This is a translation of one of the best books ever written, period. Let alone explanations of hadith, let alone an explanation of An-Nawawi's for the hadith. This is one of the best books in Islam written, period. One of the most classical works. And the title of the book is nothing about it is false advertising. Nothing. It says Jami'ul Ulum wal Hikam. Jami', a collective or a comprehensive collection of sciences and of wisdoms. في شرح 50 حديثا من جوامع الكلم, which is an explanation of 50 narrations regarding the Prophet ﷺ's laconic speech, his comprehensive speech. And we'll get more into that later on. The author, how do we get from 21 hadith to 42 hadith to 50 hadith? Al-Muhim is a book that you want to have in your library. Everything in the translation is not something that I would necessarily agree with. There's some things I feel could be translated in a better way, but in a whole, it's a good translation, an excellent book that you want to have in English. Moving on. Next one is called, I'm sure many brothers have this book, Commentary on the 40 Hadith of An-Nawawi, Sharh al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya by Jamar ad-Din az-Zarabozo. It's an excellent scholastic work that has been written many years ago, in which the author put a great deal of time, effort, and energy in servicing this book, something that you definitely want to have in your libraries. As far as Arabic, those hadith disciples who are fluent in the Arabic language, proficient in the Arabic language, then there are many books. First and foremost, as we said before, Jami' Ulum al-Hikam fi Sharh 50 Hadithan min Jawami' al-Kalim of Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah from the 8th century. This is a staple book, and it's a book that I would recommend everyone who's a talib al-ilm to read from cover to cover over and over and over and over again. It's full of wisdom and science and knowledge. Then we have the explanation, for example, of An-Nawawi himself. He made commentary on many of the hadith that he put together. There's also commentary of the great master Ibn Daqiq al-Eid rahimahullah, the great alim of Egypt, who died in the early the medieval period of al-Islam. He has a very beneficial explanation, which we have mentioned and done on our channel. Khairan, inshallah. The next book that we want to teach you about or show you is called Classic Series of 40 Hadith Collections. 40 Hadith al-Ajurri, compiled and explained by Al-Imam Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn al-Hussein al-Ajurri, died 360 of the Hijrah. This book has nothing to do with Nawawi's 40 Hadith. As you can see, he died many years before An-Nawawi, but it's going to take us to the next phase of our critical analysis, and that is Ahmed Kandil, the 40 Hadith genre. There's a genre of books of hadith in which we call al-arba'inat. Books in which the authors put together 40 prophetic narrations. Now I want to open up the floor again. Munis, questions for you. Inshallah, may you be blessed. Why did the scholars of Islam, the scholars of hadith, why did they put so much focus and attention on putting together books with this number 40? Why not 30? Why not 20? Why not 100? Why 40? We have so many books that speak and talk about the number 40. What is so magical or mystical about this number 40? This is from Munis. Type. Our brother Munis, Allah bless him, says, I believe that there is a narration that states that he who narrates or passes on 40 hadiths, he will go to paradise. Something like this. We say, Ahsanta, very good job and very good proper conduct in answering the question. He said, I believe. May be wrong, I may be right. But he said, I believe that there is a narration. Is the narration authentic? Is it da'if? Is it fabricated? He said what? A narration. This is from the asalib, the styles of the ulama. There is a narration. That states, he who narrates 40 hadith will go to paradise, or something similar to this meaning. We say, first and foremost, the reason why the scholars wrote books on 40, or the 40 genre, is for the following reasons. Number one, is because of this narration. And there are many versions of this narration. Some of them state, من حفظ على أمتي 40 حديثا بعث يوم القيامة فقيها. From those narrations is the one that states, anyone who memorizes 40 narrations from my nation will be resurrected on the day of judgment as an erudite scholar. In other words, this Muslim man or woman will have a great status, prestige, fame, and fortune on Yawm al-Qiyamah for doing nothing but memorizing 40 narrations. And there are other things that explain this. We say in brief, and to keep things short, this narration is not authentic, rather it is extremely weak, on the borderline of being fabricated. How did the ulama of Islam, some of them, mention these hadiths, narrate them, act upon them? That's not necessarily my job or my task. But that hadith is not authentic. And the Prophet, he did not say those words. But this is a reason. Number two, the second reason is this is called what we call at-tafannun. We call this style or this technique at-tafannun, which means to mix up and to switch up your styles. In other words, to collect or to compile 1,000 hadith, 2,000, 7,000, 500 is relatively easy. Is relatively easy. But to take from thousands and make 40 that are comprehensive, that are sweet and beautiful and easy, lay them out, organize them, that takes a level of what? Skill. That takes some type of creativity. So the scholars of Islam, especially the muhaddithin, they always wanted to practice this art called at-tafannun, which means to mix it up and not to bore you and not to mention the same thing over and over again. That's why we find them differing, how they wrote several different books. Khair, inshallah. The third reason behind this is, as we said before, a contagious fever. One alim did it, another alim wanted to do it. A second alim did it, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And then it became a classical style. As the poet said, تَشَبَّهُ بِالْكِرَامِ وَإِن لَمْ تَكُونُوا مِثْلَهُمْ إِنَّ التَّشَبُّهَ بِالْكِرَامِ فَلَاحُ. He said, imitate the successful. Copycat the successful. You should be like the successful people, even if you're not like them specifically. For indeed, imitating a people of success is a means of success. In other words, you have a good example in the ulama of hadith who came before you. You have a good example in them. Khairan, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next thing that we want to get into of our critical analysis is a brief, summarized biography of An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala wa radiya anhu. And before we move on, there are many things that have been said about Nawawi rahimahullah. Some things are controversial, some things are questionable. There are things that are open up for debate with regards to his life and how he lived and what he believed in. We're not here to discuss those things in detail. We are here to shed some light, just a little bit of light, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, on who he was, where he was from, when he was born, when he died, and most importantly, how he lived, no matter how long or short his life was. And this is a summary from a larger work. هو الشيخ الإمام العالم الرباني محي الدين أبو زكريا يحيى شرف ابن مري الحزام النووي الحافظ الفقيه شيخ الإسلام في عصره وبعد عصره. وكان من العلماء العاملين والأئمة الراسخين وأولياء الله العارفين والزهاد المذكورين. ولد في العشر الأوسط من المحرم سنة 631 للهجرة بنوى، ونشأ بها، وكان آية في النجابة من صغره، وقرأ بها القرآن. وقدم دمشق في سنة 49 فقرأ التنبيه في 4 أشهر ونصف، وحفظ الربع المهذب في بقية السنة، ومكث قريبا من 2 لا يضع جنبه على الأرض. وكان يقرأ في اليوم 12 درسا على المشايخ شرحا وتصحيحا في مختلف الفنون. وكان حافظا لأوقاته عن أن تضيع في غير طاعة، مراقبا لله عز وجل في حركاته وسكناته وخطواته وخطراته، آمنا بالمعروف ناهيا عن المنكر. ومناقبه ومآثره لا تكاد تحصى، وقد أفردها تلميذه الشيخ علاء الدين بن العطار بتصنيف مستقل جمع فيه معظم أحواله. We say that An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he was the great scholar, the alim, Rabbani, which has a deeper meaning than just scholar, a deeper meaning than someone who's learned. When we say someone who's Rabbani, is a whole nother level of depth, which we don't have the time to mention right now. He was given the title Muhyiddin. His kunya was Abu Zakaria. His first name was Yahya Sharaf ibn Murri al-Hizami an-Nawawi. In other words, not only did he die in Nawwa, but he was born in Nawwa. So he's attributed to that village or that city or that town, and that's why he takes the ascription An-Nawawi. He was the Shaykh al-Islam during his time and also after his time. He's from those ulama who not only knew a lot, but who acted a lot. He was from those firmly grounded people who had a great deal of knowledge and wisdom from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And bi'idhnillah, inshallah, he was from the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those who weren't just normal slaves of Allah. Bi'idhnillah, only Allah knows. But we hope, bi'idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he was from the chosen slaves, the friends of Ar-Rahman, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was from those ulama who was well known to practice a great deal of zuhd, of abstaining from unnecessary things from the worldly life. He was born in the middle of the month of Muharram in the year 631 of the Hijrah. The year 631 of the Hijrah, in the town of Nawwa, which is a current location in Syria. He grew up there, and from his very young, small age, he was a prodigy, as they would say. He was a genius. He was someone that was blessed from day one. When he was a very small young man or young boy, he read and studied the Quran. Then he traveled to Damascus. In other words, he didn't stay in his own town, his own village, but he went abroad. This was the practice of the scholars of the past, not those who remain in one place and don't study and don't travel. La, it's not the way of the ulama of hadith. The ulama of hadith, they traveled. Jamil, they left their homes to another place for more knowledge. They migrated for more knowledge. So he went to Damascus in the year 649. How old was he when he traveled? How old was he when he went to Damascus? How old? What is the average 18-year-old doing nowadays? Unfortunately, we spoke on this in the JMIC a couple months ago. The average 18-year-old Muslim, unfortunately, is clueless. Doesn't have a clue about life. Not deen, not sunnah, not writing a book. The average 18-year-old today, Muslim and non-Muslim, doesn't have a clue about life. What do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know. What do you want to do when you finish school? What do you like to do? Video games, football, this, that, let alone other things that may not even be permissible. May Allah help us all. I know he was different. When he was a young man, he was determined and resolute to seek knowledge. And this is something that we've said, and Allah knows best how many times. If you're young, if you like knowledge, if you're fond of knowledge, do not waste your time. Go overseas and study. marriage, work, my mother, my father, this and that. If you like knowledge, male or female, you need to travel, leave your home. There's knowledge here in America. No one said that it isn't knowledge in America. And we do not agree with the statement of those who say there are no scholars in the West. That's hogwash. We don't agree with that. That's kalam, fadi. It's a waste of time even mentioning that statement. We don't agree with that. However, when you travel, you leave your home, it's much greater than just collecting information. It doesn't mean that you can't get the same information in America. But when you travel, you leave your home, you're away from your friends, your relatives. When you travel, when you leave your home, you're making a huge, immense sacrifice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will repay you and recompense you. And the list goes on, benefit after benefit after benefit that you get for traveling to seek knowledge. That was the way of the ulama. You're not going to read the biography of an alim of the past, except that he sought knowledge and he traveled, with exceptions to a few, such as Imam Malik, rahimahullah, whereas he lived in Medina, and a great deal of knowledge was already there in Medina. So An-Nawawi, rahimahullah, he traveled in the year 649, and he began to study some books. From them is a book called At-Tanbih, and he finished that book in 4.5 months. And he also memorized a portion of the book called Al-Muhadhab, which is a famous classical book in the Shafi'i school of thought. And then he continued to read these books, study these books, and being very stingy with his time. On a daily basis, An-Nawawi rahimahullah would read 12 lessons to his teachers. They would explain those lessons, they would correct him in his understanding, etc., and all different sciences. And from the things that An-Nawawi was well known for, as I just mentioned, is that he preserved his time. He did not allow his time to be wasted. He did not allow the precious moments of his life to be scattered and to be thrown in the wind, waliyadhu billah, as many of us do on a daily basis. Not only was he stingy with his time, but he was very pious and righteous. He was one who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the things in which he did. When he was still, when he moved, when he walked, when he talked. And An-Nawawi rahimahullah, on top of all of this, he was a man who was known to enjoin the good and to forbid the evil. Not only did he learn, not only did he practice, but he also gave advice to his Muslim brothers and sisters to do the same. The virtues of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, what he did, what he left behind, and his great legacy, they are well known. And there are too many to be mentioned in a 40-minute or an hour session. ولي مشيخة دار الحديث الأشرفية وحج مرتين وزار القدس والخليل عليه وعلى نبينا الصلاة والسلام ثم رجع إلى نوى فمرض عند أبيه إلى أن توفي ليلة الأربعاء في 24 من رجب سنة 676 للهجرة ودفن بنوى رحمه الله إلى آخر كلامه رحمه الله تعالى. Upon finishing his studies and mastering what he mastered, An-Nawawi became the head teacher at the Hadith Center of Ashrafiyya. He made Hajj twice. He visited Jerusalem and he traveled to many other places. When he returned from Jerusalem, he became sick. And he stayed with his father for some time until he died on Wednesday night, the 24th of Rajab, in the year 676 in Noah. So he died in the place in which he was born. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him. This is a brief, humble, rushed biography of Nawawi. It does not give him his true right and the justice that he deserves. I would recommend that you go back to those who wrote on his life in detail. Bidnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala says brief, humble, and rushed. This doesn't give him his haqq. Bidnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So hopefully in our next session, we will actually begin the critical analysis of the book. I think we have 5 minutes left. I got the golden hand. Alhamdulillah. If anybody wants to comment or add something or correct something or ask a question, now is the time. And if not, I thank all of you for your respect and your good thoughts of me and your attentive listening and participation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you the reward and give you the beneficial knowledge. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. نعم يا أخي تفضل. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. Right. Question says, the Prophet ﷺ has taught us about balance, how to be balanced. And he mentions, to support his position or view, the hadith of Salman al-Farisi, which says, according to what he mentioned, that the Prophet ﷺ said, your body has a right, your wife has a right, etc. How or what advice can you give in light of Nawawi's life? Perhaps someone may read his biography and he may say that Nawawi's life was imbalanced. We say, first and foremost, the word balance is very, very relative, extremely relative. One man's balance is another man's lethargy. One man's balance is another man's laziness. One person's dedication is another man's obsession. One man's sacrifice is another man's negligence. You're ignoring the dunya. You don't care about the dunya. You have no concern for the dunya, etc. In your eyes, perhaps. But to me or to you, that's my love, my passion. So these terms are relative. They differ from person to person. That's first and foremost. Secondly, there is a general balance that everybody has to have. Your body has a right over you, no doubt. And if you seek knowledge until you die, you can't seek no more knowledge because your body is sick, etc. There's a time and a place for everything. However, knowledge of Islam is very, very, very stingy and extremely jealous. I'll give you a narration of one of the most knowledgeable of the tabi'een, from the greatest of the Salaf al-Salih, was Imam al-Zuhri rahimahullah. Al-Zuhri was a pioneer in writing down and compiling and formulating many books of hadith. It is mentioned that al-Zuhri would sit in his study, he would sit down in his library, and he would have his books spread out in front of him. And he would study, and he would read, and he would memorize. And al-Zuhri rahimahullah was nothing, and I quote, nothing like us today. He wasn't a person who had to sit and memorize the book, and he was a genius. He memorized millions and millions and millions of things. But yet and still, he was mujtahid. He worked hard. And this is another important lesson for all students of the Sunnah. Do not rely on your talent alone. You have to practice and work hard as well. So Zuhri would sit and he would read his books, and they would be spread out in front of him. And the narration says that his wife would come into the study. And she said to him, Wallahi, inna hadhihi al-kutub ashaddu alayya min thalathi dhara'ir. She said, I swear by Allah, your books are harder on me than me having 3 co-wives. Your books take more time, more of your attention, more of your care than 3 other women. What do you think Zuhri did? Closed his books, put his books up, I'm not going to study anymore? Do you think he would have became Zuhri if he said, you know what, I have to have a balance, my wife has time, so on and so on and so forth? Not saying that there isn't a balance. Not saying that your wife doesn't deserve time or your husband doesn't deserve time, but I'm trying to prove a point, is that if you want something, anything, let alone Islamic knowledge, you have to be thirsty and hungry. It's not something that you can just do clapping your hands. It's something that you have to be aggressive. And I'm speaking honestly, inshallah, from my heart. If you want knowledge, you have to sacrifice for it. And there are people that are champions, basketball players, football players, great boxers. If you read their biographies, people call them crazy. You're Majnoon playing basketball in the cold. You're Majnoon sitting watching that boxing tape for hours and hours and hours. Go study, go work, do a job. Do you think they became champions? No. They ate, they drank, they slept. Sports. Eat, drink, sleep, football. Eat, drink, sleep, basketball. So why, when it comes to Islamic knowledge, we have this huge, gigantic balance? And be careful of the shaitan, because the shaitan can use this word to get you to disregard your studies. It's my advice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. That topic is a lecture, what? In itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I think I've run out of time, and I'm being disrespectful to my elder, Abu Usama. It's not from the etiquettes of student of hadith to speak in the presence of someone more learned and older and more honorable. Jazakumullah khairan.